According to the Holy Scriptures, Yahweh Shai, the Son of the Most High, is set to bring immortality to the nation of Israel, the elect, via establishing the tabernacle of David. As we talk about the second coming of who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, he is coming to take down this current world ruled by Esau, Edom, and establish a righteous kingdom, which is synonymous with the throne of David. That's scriptural, which is a government that's going to run this world in righteousness. A transfer of rulership is coming, and the kingdom of heaven will be on earth. Righteousness will be spread throughout the whole four corners of the earth. Wickedness will be put down.
Help me! Help me! The Israelites are coming! Help!
Just gonna say whatever comes to my mind. The first thing I'm gonna say is, you fucking Edomites, you're in a lot of goddamn trouble because you didn't just take any old nation and enslave them and put us under your feet, but you did it to sovereigns, the children of Israel. And Yasha Allah, Yah meaning he, Shah meaning prince, which is royal, sovereign, Allah meaning power of God. We are the princes of God, and you enslaved us for a period of more than 400 years. So what in the fuck do you think you're gonna get in return? You're gonna get cold fucked up. We're gonna kick your ass. We're gonna break you up. We're gonna fuck you up. We're gonna work you in the fields. We're gonna work your ass every day, and you ain't gonna get no fucking break. You ain't gonna have no shit, man. If we decide to make your motherfucking ass work 2-3 days straight, you gonna do it, bitch. You gonna do it, you motherfuckers. You got that time is on our side, not your side, man. You can do whatever you want, but you better do it fucking quick, because your time is up, man.
A transfer of rulership is coming, and the kingdom of heaven will be on earth. Righteousness will be spread throughout the whole four corners of the earth. Wickedness will be put down.
Help me! Help me! The Israelites are coming!
Time is on our side, not your side, man. You can do whatever you want, but you better do it fucking quick, because your time is up, man.
All right. Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem, Makakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers, and peace and blessings and salutation to the hopeful lake out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem, Makakwadash, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful lake, the believers, the listeners who have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashim Shai. All right. And what I want to get into this morning, this morning news and prophecy. All right, here we go. Here we go. All right. As it seems like they're gonna run, with this narrative, dealing with the Hunter virus. There are already a lot of reports, that don't make sense, but it makes sense when it comes into this devil, needing to create another crisis. Okay. So now all the stories and talking points, of this thing getting out of control, well, they're out there now. Now this devil, has created a narrative as if he's done lost, control, of the containment, of what you call this Hunter virus, man. And this is beautiful because it all, works in our favor. Like we always get into every day, man. These things, work on our behalf. All right. Because what we're seeing is the Lord getting ready, to judge, all right, the earth in righteousness, man. And he's getting ready to show mercy to his hopeful elect. And there's a great chance that we could be part of that number, man. If we endure, this hour of temptation, which we know, we're going to have to go through the straight gate. We're going to have to make a decision, not based on convenience or comfort, but faith, and let the Lord intervene and do what he said he promised he's going to do for his people, man. They wait on him. Okay. So what we're seeing is the judgment of the Lord beginning to really escalate in the earth, man. A lot of things are manufactured, a lot of things that we see, the devil stages. Okay. But ultimately the death and the torment that's to come is not going to be staged, man. This is going to be real. Okay. The earth is being set for true judgment, man. For the Lord to have people in torments, man. Okay. And Esau is a tool being used to bring these things about, man. And there's even things that's going to be happening that's above Esau's reasoning. There's going to be things happening that he can't reason. Okay, because it's the time of the judgment of the Lord, and the Lord is pissed at this society, man, especially here in the West and especially in America, man. So when you go here to the book of Tobit, chapter 4, verse 13, it says, "Now therefore, my son, love thy brethren and despise not in thy heart thy brethren, the sons and daughters of thy people, and not taking a wife of them, for in pride is destruction and much trouble." Okay, so for pride is destruction and much trouble, and then lewdness is decay and great want. For lewdness is the mother of famine. Okay, so pride, all right, is destruction. For in pride is destruction and much trouble, man. And we know that under the rulership of Esau Edom, man, the earth has become extremely proud, man, especially here in America, man. There's no country on earth that's more proud than the American people, man. More entitled, okay, more lewd, okay, because the nastiness that we see throughout the earth, okay, the lewdness, okay, the rebellion against righteousness that we see in the earth. Well, America is the motherland of it, man. So that's why it's going to be the worst here in America, man. America is the home of lewdness, man. Things that, all right, were outlawed in other countries, man. All right, that at least were able to make these things a culture in America, man. Okay, you go into certain industries, Hollywood. Okay, OnlyFans. See, these things are creations of America, man. To where the average woman can just be, a corn star. Okay, the average nigga just a glorified serial killer. Okay. People, these billionaires, these tech guys that, are glorified and idolized, man. And they get their wealth through death and destruction, man. Okay? So what we're seeing because of lewdness and perversion, that the earth is coming into a time of great want. Even Esau, man, he's lacking in things that he needs for his new world order. He's coming into great want. Okay? And the average person is coming into great want, man. All right? And lewdness is the mother of famine. So lewdness births famine. You see? So we're coming into a time, where the Lord is getting ready to escalate his judgment. You see, the Lord is getting ready to visit the earth with these plagues, man, with pestilence, with war, with famine, with civil unrest, man. Okay? The teeth of wild beasts, man, so forth and so on, man. There's so many, because the Lord has everything to his disposal to judge, So we're finna see horrific judgment, all right, just be amplified in the earth. Okay? And this is what the stage is being set for. Okay? For the Lord to bring about righteous judgment. You see, their righteous reset. Esau in his mind, he thinks that he's going to do a technocracy reset, a digital reset. Okay? But no, this is the Lord's reset in progress, man. Okay? And Esau, he's going to get rolled over in the process, man. Jeremiah 50:31 said, "Behold, I'm against thee, O thou most proud, said the Lord, power of hosts. For the day is come, the time that I will visit thee." You see? So we're in the time where the Lord's going to visit the most proud. And the most proud is here in America, man. This is the land of the most proud. Okay? Esau, Edom is the most proud nation on earth. And he's turned America to the most proud country in the earth, man. And there's a visitation for that, man. Okay? And prophecy goes into, the things that will be happening towards the end of this thing, man. You go to 2nd Ezra 16 in the GNT 16 and 18. This 2nd Ezra 16 and 18 said troubles will come, all right, and many people will groan. And this is in the GNT, and we're hearing nothing but groaning. That's why the internet is just full of compilations of people complaining. Okay, farmers complaining about, Trump and his policies, and, the average person complaining about, their day-to-day expenses and their life is, So we're seeing many people beginning to groan as these troubles increase in the earth, and it's only going to increase, man. Okay? Gas going to keep rising, food going to keep rising. There's going to come to a point where these devils they're going to start rationing these things, man. Okay? It says famine will come. You see, people finna be shut off to food. People finna be shut off to their essentials, man. Okay? These are the days that we living in, man. America's finna get very dystopian, man. Very violent. Okay, very dystopian. You see? Famine is going to be the new thing. It's going to be the end thing. Okay, it said famine will come and many will die. Wars will come and the world powers will tremble. Okay? You see, the Lord finna bring the governments of the earth to their knees, man. You see, as the elites, their thing is to bring society to their knees to choose to see him. Okay? But the Lord is going to bring, these governments to their knees, through war. Okay? Because this war is going to get out of control. It's been held and checked, all right, until these other prophecies come to pass. But this war eventually is going to go out of control, man. You see? Disasters will come and everyone will be terrified. What will people do when these disasters come? Okay? And if you're not within, all right, of the hopeful elect, there's nothing that can be done. Okay? You just got to deal with the judgment of the Lord. Okay? May we be a part of the hopeful elect. Okay? And fall into the Lord's mercy, man, when these things come to pass. Okay? But if you're not of the hopeful elect, man, you just got to deal with the judgment, man. Okay? It says famine, epidemics, troubles, and suffering are sent to punish and correct the people. So these things are sent out as a correction to a wicked society. Okay, but we know that the majority of society is not meant, all right, to receive the correction, man. And the Most High wants them hardened so he can continue on with the punishment, man. Okay, so he can bring on all the plagues, the Lord wants to play out all his wrath. Okay, so only the elect are meant to repent, you see, and come back to Yahweh Shema Shah, the elect of Israel. There's only one nation is eligible for repentance, and that's Israel, man. Okay, verse 20. But in spite of all this, they will not turn away from their sins. They soon forget their punishment. Yeah, so these people, they're not going to be able to equate the punishment of what's happening because of their wickedness, man. You see? Because people feel as if, they're entitled, okay, to peace and safety. Okay, not knowing that peace and safety is really a privilege of obedience to Yahweh Shema Shah. Okay, and there's one thing that Esau has deceived the world is if you're entitled to peace and safety while you're in the all-out rebellion against the Most High. Okay, and the Lord doesn't want the masses to repent, man. He wants them to be hardened so he can keep on and pouring out his wrath, man, because his wrath has to be fulfilled, man. The Lord has a lot of pent-up wrath, all right, for the earth, man, especially here in America, man. Okay, verse 21 says the time is coming when food will be so cheap that people will think a time of peace and plenty has arrived. Okay, so you had a time, where people was, still able to go out, move around, kick it, enjoy themselves to a degree. You see, not knowing, okay, that the hardest time ever is right around the corner. Okay, the most horrific time the earth has ever seen is right around the corner. You see, but then disasters will spring up everywhere, wars, famine, and great confusion. Okay, and what we're seeing, the disaster is beginning to spring up everywhere, man. And all these things are just compounding and amplifying one another, man. All these different crises, they're starting to compound and amplify each other, man. Okay, and these things are just springing up, man. Okay, while people, their mind is just trying to, find some type of comfort in this world. Okay, to maintain their little convenient situation. Okay, but the Lord got it set up to where disasters are just going to keep springing up everywhere, man. Wars, famine, and great confusion, man. Because if your hope is in this world, getting back to some type of normalcy and, convenience and being comfortable, being like it used to be. And nah, man, you're just gonna be more confused because it's gonna get further and further away from your expectation. Okay, and things are gonna be happening, all right, that you're not in the loop of, man. Okay, verse 22 says, many people on earth will starve to death. You see, this is a promise. See, prophecy is a future promise of the Lord. Okay, man, many people on earth will starve to death, and those who escape starvation will be killed in war. Okay, so all these things that we're seeing happening are all tools of judgment of the Most High. Okay, and Esau has his, play for a new world order. Okay, but like I say, prophecy is going to steamroll this nigga as well. It's going to roll this nigga over, man. He's going to get caught in the blender of prophecy, man. You see, of the Lord's anger, of his wrath. Okay, so there's no escaping the judgment of the Lord. You see, I say people are trying to find ways to try to prep for what's coming. People looking up, how to dodge the draft. People looking up how to, survive off the grid and all these different things. Okay, but they don't understand this is a judgment of the Lord. This ain't just random events happening. Okay, it's beyond the shadow government. Okay, and their agenda. No, this is the Lord's judgment going forth, man. You see, so you're not going to outthink your way, all right, from the judgment of the Lord. You see, there's no loopholes to get through the judgment of the Lord, man. If you're not of the elect of Israel, you got to deal with judgment, man. Okay, verse 23 said their corpse will be thrown out like garbage. Okay, because it's going to be so much death, man. You see, it's going to be so much judgment happening at the same time. That's what the stage is being set for, man. Okay, it says, and there will be no one left to comfort the living. The earth will be deserted and the cities demolished, man. You know, so between these pestilence, these wars, okay, civil unrest, okay, famine, you see, the earth is going to be devastated, man. And America, at the end, going to be turned to a complete desert as a result of this war. Okay, so it's going to be so much, all right, going on. It's going to be hard to keep up with. Okay, and the Lord finna start racking up these bodies out here, man. You see, he finna take the Lord's finna take judgment to another phase. Okay, we're getting to the end of the verbal warning. Okay, because the Lord raised up his prophets, you know, in these last days to come with a verbal warning. Okay, to give the verbal warning of what's to come. Okay, but we're coming to the end of the Lord, all right, giving these verbal warnings, and he's just going to be all action, man. Okay, now let's go here, because like I say, you know, it's like these devils are getting ready, you know, to run with this narrative, you know, dealing with the hantavirus. Now when you go let's see. So let's go here. We got a few videos to tap into. Let's play this.
All right, guys, let's talk about this hantavirus. This is a situation unfolding that doesn't look good because you know how they can spin things up and you know what we've been through before. As of right now, to start off with, this began with Arizona, California, and Georgia in the United States reporting that they are monitoring residents for this potential hantavirus infection. Now, here just recently, they're saying that 2 Texans and a person from Virginia are also being monitored. So this is already spread out across 5 different states. They're saying they're monitoring these people. They're saying like 8 people in total have contracted this thus far. That number can change. 3 have died. Okay. Now, those are some of the numbers. Israel also saying that they have their first confirmed case. Suspect. Anytime some of these goons open their mouth, it just shows exactly what's going on, if you ask me. Now, you're looking at the boat on the left, the emergency boat down here that took people out. One of the people being taken out, you can see right here. And on the right, they have shots here of they're basically injections. Is what we're looking at here. And I'm going to take you over to a list. They're jet injections is what these are. They're not the needle type of jab. And you can see I've got a full list here of all of them listed on these, everything that they've been doing, all the history on it. Back it up one more here. And you can see that this right here, the strain, specific strain of the Andes virus DNA, this is needle-free, and it's shooting it into the skin, as you can see here, in this demonstration. So all of this is...
So they already got something that they shooting in you, man. Okay, they already got something that they shooting in you. You see? So it look like they finna go for it, man. You know, Abaradazar, man. You know, that they run with this narrative, man. You know, and shut this thing down, man, and get on to the next phase of them attempting, you know, their new world order. You know, to message to Esau, hurry up and fail, nigga, because all this is gonna fail. Okay, but they already got some type of all right, all right, juice that they shoot people with. Okay, problem reaction solution, man.
Already out there, already going 100%, all engineered in Fort Detrick in the United States of America. You have people on the left already saying mask up right now, left and right, all over the place. It's ridiculous. You have also vials of this that went missing. And this is pretty big. This is major. You have 323 vials containing deadly viruses that went missing from a lab in Australia. You can see right here from ABC News. This is from December 11th, 2024. The guy goes on to say that we don't know of any events where any of these things have been used. Well, guess what? Hantavirus is now out there, and it was released here on a cruise ship. 2 vials containing the hantavirus spread by rodents with a 38% fatality rate.
Yeah, man. So you see these stories like they in the push, man. Because how you just have 300 vials go missing in 2024, and now these things are just now discussed. Okay, so supposedly 300 vials of this virus, okay, went missing in 2024 in Australia. So there's no telling where they at now. Okay, so this devil is setting it up so where he can be real vague, to where he can just say, look, we've lost control, we've lost containment, and this is what it seems like he's going with it according to these stories, man.
Okay. X-Files warned us about this. I put a video out over on my X. I obviously can't share it here on YouTube for copyright reasons, but this ties back to Amy Eskridge, the missing scientist, and a warning here from the X-Files straight up, where this guy says something to Mulder. Mulder, have you heard of the hantavirus? And they discuss it. Now, you know how they got to telegraph these things before they all go down. This one is not looking good. All I'm saying is people be vigilant, be smart about everything out there. Join me for the live show where I can talk about this in greater detail.
We got that I got that clip from the X-File that he's speaking of. We'll get that our ratas out. But let's go here, man. So now I say the devil, he's really pushing their narrative as if, he's in lost containment. Okay, because now there's people that's unaccounted for that was on the ship. At first the reports was coming out like everybody was contained on the ship. Now it's reports that he done dropped niggas off here. He done dropped some niggas off over there. Okay, that was exposed to it, and then it has a 8-week period to where, it can be dormant, in your body. All right, you got this article here. Okay, because first the story was like they had it all contained on the ship. Okay, but then a few days later, they done drop niggas off. They didn't drop people off everywhere. A few people over here, a few people over there, a few people over here. Just conveniently drop people off in every hemisphere of Earth. Just boom, boom. All right, drop these niggas off. Okay, and they tell the public about it days later. Okay, so he says a Brit who left the hantavirus cruise ship early has gone missing, and health officials are struggling to find them. Listen to this, man. Here it is with Palantir. They can track Iranian scientists and generals and Russian generals. Here it is. They can track these people and know exactly when, all right, they're coming home, when they're going to be here. Okay. But this random, all right, Brit, all right, this British guy, this nigga just got off the boat, and now no one can find this nigga, man. Okay. So here we go, man. All right. So it said health officials are working to track down a British passenger who was aboard the cruise ship MV Honduras. All right, Honduras. After it emerged that one person was disembarked, the vessel remains. It says after it it emerged that one person who disembarked the vessel remains unaccounted for. A detailed, all right, lad Bible or Bible on the World Health Organization has confirmed, all right, 5 cases of hantavirus linked to the voyage, with 7 cases total identified, including 3 deaths, 1 critically ill patient, and 3 individuals reporting mild symptoms, man. Okay, so now you have a guy, all right, from British who was on the ship, and he disembarked, and now he's gone missing. You know, so you know he just everywhere spreading. Okay, he just everywhere giving it out, man. You know, so they're setting up a lot of narratives that they can run with, man. Okay, know how the devil gets down. You see, and you can get brother can post that 2 Corinthians 2:11 in the NLT. All right, well let's go to this video here. There's another video. Okay, he's gonna go more into detail. Okay, of these people that have, you know, just jumping out, these people that just been dropped off everywhere, you know, from this cruise ship. You know, play this.
The suspect is
that virus. So we're going to be covering the states that are currently on alert in the United States for hantavirus, the Andes variant, which we hear spreads person to person. This is a very, very deadly virus, 40% mortality rate, as we're hearing that passengers from that ship that were infected with that virus are back in the United States. 7 of them. We're going to be covering which states and what is currently underway right now. As we're hearing, this also has been confirmed to spread to 6 countries, and there are cases with individuals that were not on that ship but have been exposed to people that were. Let's take a look at the latest headlines. Then I'm going to go through the timeline for you so you can understand what is unfolding here, how this already has gotten out of hand, and currently what the next steps are going to be with the list of the 5 U.S. states that currently have people from the ship back in the United States already. Let's go ahead and take a look at the latest headlines so you can see it for yourself. Some hantavirus cruise passengers, they are back in the United States. It turns out 26 passengers already disembarked the ship at St. Helena on April 24th. This was before they were aware that the hantavirus Andes variant was aboard. They had already let them off. So people were saying, now that we know that this ship is infected, don't let them off the boat. Turns out people already had disembarked. Now, take a look at more of the headlines coming out today, May 7th, 2026. The U.S. is monitoring the hantavirus cruise passengers. Dozens left the ship after the first death had already occurred. It also emerged Thursday that a flight attendant was being tested for the hantavirus at a hospital in Amsterdam. So this morning, we're hearing more infections, and these are people that were not on the boat, but they are people that have been exposed to these individuals that were on the boat. The CDC is now urging all Americans that were aboard the hantavirus hit cruise ship to follow guidance. Now, California is one of those. California, among the 3 states currently monitoring residents who were aboard the hantavirus cruise ship. Now, this particular article says there's actually 5 U.S. states. Virginia, traveler from the hantavirus-stricken cruise ship has returned home, officials say. The Virginia Department of Health says one Virginia traveler who was aboard the cruise ship hit by the deadly hantavirus outbreak has returned home and is under public health monitoring at this time. And again, you can see the date on this as the news is pouring in, May 7th, 2026. This is coming out today. Here is another one. From the U.S. to Singapore, cruise passengers are being monitored for the hantavirus. This updated 17 minutes ago, as today we're getting new updates that the people already left the ship before they realized that it was the hantavirus. And this is some of the alarming news coming out today as well. Take a look. A French person is being monitored after cruise patients had evacuated. Now, why is this so concerning? Take a look here. A French person who had not set foot on the hantavirus-stricken MV Hondias is being monitored as a contact case for the infection after taking a flight with a passenger. It was reported on Wednesday. So one of the people that left the cruise ship, they're saying was infected. This person sat next to them in the plane, and they are now saying this French individual has been infected with the hantavirus. It is confirmed because this is the Andes variant, which is transferred person to person. Now, to understand what is unfolded here, let's go through the timeline very quickly before we dive into the video footage that's been coming out today, before we dive into the articles. So to give you an idea of how things have unfolded, this goes back to March 20th. This was in Argentina. So this is from Argentina, where they say the hantavirus originates from, and that particular strain can be found there. A southern Atlantic excursion began on March 20th. It has already passed through small islands throughout the southern Atlantic. So yes, they were stopping at various locations. This might have already spread to other locations, islands.
So this boat been stopping at various locations. Okay, you see the narrative? You know, so this boat has made plenty of stops to various locations. So basically, it's global. You see, basically they can run with a global narrative again. The stage is set for them to do that, man. You know, so day for day, we'll see how these devils spin it.
Now, April 11th, there was a 70-year-old man that passed away aboard, and you're going to be seeing the video footage here in just a little bit. They were not aware of the fact that it was the hantavirus. They thought that he just passed from natural causes. They told everybody on the ship that it was okay, and they thought that things were fine. April 12th through the 20th, the ship docked at St. Helena, which is a remote British island. They took the man off of the ship, and they also had his wife with him, who had also became very ill and needed to be hospitalized. Shortly after, she passed away after they had docked. Then on April 27th, a week later, the ship docks at Ascension Island. And there is a second person aboard this ship that is sick. That person ended up dying shortly after, and then was confirmed to be the hantavirus, the Andes variant. Then they checked the other people that had passed. They had it as well. All the while, people have been getting on and off the ship since March 20th, which they believe that the original people, the first man that passed away, was the original person that contracted it. And all this time, he's been infected, likely infecting others that are now infecting others as well. Now, when we had heard this news just this past week that they were saying they weren't going to let them off of the ship, they're saying, well, there actually have been 23 people that got off the ship back on April 27th, and they are already back all over in various places around the world. We're hearing in Australia, we're hearing in Europe, and in the United States, 7 individuals already back here in the United States. Now, there were 17 Americans aboard that ship, so there are 10 that are still stuck on the boat, but there are 7 that are currently here. Now, we're going to get into all the details, the list, so you know which states that the California, Arizona, Georgia, Texas, and Virginia. So that is currently the 5 states that we know that those people that were aboard that ship have returned to. So let's go ahead, though, and take a look at the video footage. We're going to be taking a look at the articles. A lot of breaking news updates coming out on this today, May 7th, 2026. Let me know in the comments, are you concerned? Yes or no? Let me know your thoughts. Now, do me a favor, if you appreciate the live stream updates, though, keeping you up to speed on everything, before we dive in, please take a second, hit that thumbs up like button for me. Helps out stream a ton, just so some more people can get the updates as to what's going on. A lot of people were saying they hadn't heard anything about it when I was reporting it 2 days ago. Now we're starting to see it everywhere. I let you know we're likely going to be hearing a whole lot more on this, and now it's starting to come out, and more details are starting to pop up on the spreading of this hantavirus Andes variant. What's very alarming about this is they said that it's concerning because there's a 40% mortality rate. In other words, about 1 out of 2 people that get this will not survive. There's also no vaccination. There's no remedy. There's no medication. You just simply catch it, and they don't know how to help you. In addition to that, the incubation period for this is 8 weeks. So you literally could have it.
So they're saying they're saying that there's no juice for it. You know, there's no scene for it. Okay, which creates what? A demand. You know, makes it seem like there's a problem. Okay, and that there needs a solution. You know, so there's no cure. There's no remedy for it. Okay, there's no solution that has been created. So when they create one, they're gonna, because what that does, it creates a demand. You know, it's just this outbreak that's on the loose. You know, there's nothing that's created, you know, to subdue it. So when they do create one, it's going to be in high demand. Same play they ran with the C-19. There wasn't a scene for it already. You know, there wasn't a jump shot for it already. Okay, so they had to do what under Trump. They had to do what the Operation, Warp Speed, and what they did they created demand. You know, they created demand for it to where they kept saying, okay, we're working on it. You know, we're working day and night, and we got this crew. All right. You know, we got this we got this team on it. Okay, that team on it. Okay, we got this people working on it. You know, they finally came up with something. You see? So, you know, this devil, you know, he's real crafty, okay, in how he moves. You see? So now, you know, they got this problem that's on the loose with no solution. Okay? Which is going to create a demand. So let's play this. Matter of fact, get this preset real quick. Okay. This is the brother servants for Yahushua, 2 Corinthians 2:11. It says, so that Satan will not outsmart us, for we are familiar with his evil schemes. Okay, we know how the devil gets down, man. You know, as the Lord has had his men watching this devil, you know, you get familiar with his patterns, his schemes, how he moves. You know, we know this nigga game, his tendencies. Okay, we know this nigga tendencies, man. Okay. So yeah, let's play a little bit more of this. He's gonna go into some more news. I'll put the link in the description, I believe, in the comments.
Right now, be infected, be contagious, not even know that you're infected with it for around 2 months. So they're saying that the people that are still on the boat, they're saying keep them on that boat. Do not let them dock for the next 8 weeks. So like I said, I'm going to keep you guys up to date. So in order to stay up to date, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's totally free. Why not? I'll keep you up to speed on everything. Hit the like button. All the articles I'm going to be referencing are going to be linked in the description, but I don't think anybody probably is going to be questioning the validity of this. It is all over the news today. A lot of people are very concerned, especially after what we had several years ago with the COVID pandemic. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of the updates to get you caught up on a lot of the news that's starting to pour in today, May 7th, 2026, on the hantavirus.
This morning, health officials are tracing the contacts of passengers who were on a cruise ship with a deadly virus. Officials in Georgia say they are monitoring 2 American passengers who recently came home, and another is being watched in Arizona. So the ship is now heading toward the Canary Islands in the Atlantic, but it may not be allowed to dock. Tom Hansen is here with the latest. Tom, this saga is a nightmare, ongoing nightmare for these poor people. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Gail. So many developments here. More than 24 passengers who were on the infected ship disembarked nearly 2 weeks after the first passenger died of the deadly virus, according to the ship's operator. Now, meanwhile, health officials in Arizona and Georgia say none of their residents who were on the ship are showing signs of infection.
Imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
U.S. health officials are monitoring Americans who were aboard the MV Hondius but departed before the ship went into quarantine. The MV Hondius is less than 1 day into a 3 to 4 day journey from Cape Verde to the Canary Islands, and already the plan to get the nearly 150 passengers off the boat is facing pushback.
Tiene que salvaguardarse
The Tenerife mayor says his island is ill-equipped to handle the aid needed to be administered to the passengers and warns that allowing the ship to dock could pose a greater health risk for the local population. So far, at least 8 people on board are believed to have been infected with the hantavirus. 3 of those cases have been confirmed, 3 passengers have died, and 1 is in critical condition. And now the Dutch Health Ministry is reporting a stewardess is in the hospital after showing possible symptoms of hantavirus. She was not on the cruise, but had reportedly been in contact with a woman who died from the virus. Ruhi Jeanette was a passenger on the cruise. He recorded this video of the captain announcing the first death days later.
One of our passengers sadly passed away last night. Tragic as it is, it was due to natural causes, we believe.
Following the captain's announcement, Jeanette said the passengers on board continued with social activities.
He said it was due to natural causes and we are not infectious. This was relaxing at the time, but it was also misguiding us. Because
clearly so many questions here.
Yeah, so you can keep watching it, just go more into certain narratives that they're running with. Well, let's go to here, and just show you how, this devil, playing these things out now. Because they need a crisis, man. You devil need a crisis, man. Okay? And they really need to accelerate this shutdown, because the energy crisis by itself, is not going to be enough. These niggas going to have to keep coming with more and more crisis, man. So let's play this, with the energy, crisis, compounded with this, man. Okay, they're just going to amplify one another, man. And push this place into turmoil a lot faster, man. So let's play a little bit of this.
We lived in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was. Then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
Tonight, a desperate plea from passengers trapped on board a cruise ship.
What's happening right now is very real for all of us here.
Where a suspected hantavirus outbreak has left 3 people dead and another in intensive care. The ship, now docked off the coast of Africa, has 149 people on board, including at least 3 others who the ship's operator says require medical care. For now, nobody is being allowed off the boat.
We're not just headlines. We're people with families, with lives, with people waiting for us at home.
Hantavirus is usually spread by rodents. It's the same disease that killed Betsy Arakawa, the wife of late actor Gene Hackman.
There's a lot of uncertainty, and that's the hardest part.
It's unclear if the passengers on this ship were infected on board or before getting on. And while rare, there is a variant that is transmitted human to human. It's typically found in South America, which is where this cruise ship originated 3 weeks ago.
In the very rare case of human to human transmission, it does require direct contact with human bodily fluids.
As the ship's operator figures out next steps, everyone on board is stuck waiting and hoping the virus is contained.
All we want right now is to feel safe, to have clarity, and to get home.
And what we can tell you is that all of these people are going to undergo a medical evaluation to see if they are presenting with any symptoms. If any of them are presenting with symptoms, the WHO has told us that they could potentially be quarantined for up to 2 months.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. I'm sure you have all heard about the hantavirus outbreak, which, of course, as always, is directly out of a movie. And you could see the ridiculous acting in that clip. And of course, I say acting, and people say, how could you say that any of them are acting? that this is real. Well, of course, you even hear in the verbiage that they use, they try to convince you that this is a real situation. This is the real deal. Of course, that's another way of subliminal mind control, because they want to make sure that there's no penetration to your actual brain when it comes to questioning the news and these news stories. But it very well easily can be faked. And we know that they can pretend that a cruise ship left a certain dock and it was out to sea and all these characters were on board, and we got that one specific character who was crying and who just happened to be so emotionally upset who wanted to convince you he was really on the boat. And this is all, again, about controlling the masses, controlling the minds of the masses, manipulating them into living in fear, and of course, eventually getting them all to consent to be vaccinated. And of course, wanting you to be vaccinated as well is a big part of all of this, as you'll see and have seen in the past, where these hive-minded sheeple can't get it through their heads that the definition of a vaccine is supposed to make you immune to a disease, so you shouldn't care at all if anyone else is vaccinated or not, that you would be perfectly protected. But they're so unhinged and so insane in the year 2026 because of overconsumption of media, overconsumption of propaganda, and believing everything they see, which again only comes through the eyes of the tell-lie vision and other forms of media. So the cruise ship at the center of the suspected deadly hantavirus outbreak refused permission to dock. I love how they even shown Gene Hackman, who I broke down Gene Hackman's death and his wife's death on the website back when that occurred, how they tied that in nicely with a little bow with the hantavirus. And of course, this cruise, as we all know, they always leave their coding, and it was a 33-day Atlantic Odyssey cruise. So it was a 33-day cruise. That's really all you should know. But of course, most people will overlook the number 33, how it's constantly used by these Freemasonic demons who create these false news stories, of course, creating a control grid system that we're all living in under full mind control. But 33 you'll find in almost every single psychological operation that they create. And it's just way too difficult for these people to wrap this around their minds, that they can fictionalize the news for control of the minds of the masses. They can easily show you a picture of a ship, which they can, again, they can take B-roll footage from stock of a ship out at sea, put it on the news, and tell you that this is the ship where these people were. You don't need to see any evidence of them on board, because they give you some guy who makes Instagram videos who's a world traveler crying on a cruise ship, telling you to please believe him on a cruise ship, and then your brain automatically believes it and then thinks people like me are all crazy conspiracy theorists, when we can prove and have proven time and time again that these are all government-created psychological operations. So you can look below the news clips. Let's start there to show you how the psychological operation works. These are comments from people underneath the video that I just played for you. That was the NBC News propaganda clip, right? And then someone says, and that's the exact reason I don't go on cruise ships, this and other stuff, right? So here we have somebody who's literally afraid to go on a boat, afraid to leave their home, and they say other stuff, afraid to get on a plane because of all the propaganda and damage that has been done to their minds, the trauma, because really what happened with COVID was a form of trauma-based mind control on the masses to get you to live a certain way, not want to travel anymore. That's part of a New World Order and Agenda 2030, restricted travel, restricted movement. So instead of telling you can't go here or there, they're going to scare you into not wanting to go here or there, being afraid to fly. All these fake stories about planes crashing or planes touching, even recently the wheels of a plane skidding across a car. The stories get more and more unreal. Planes crashing into government the DARPA helicopters, things that would never happen in a million years, making people more fearful to fly, all the stuff going on with the air traffic control. It's too dangerous. That's too dangerous. Why leave your home? Why not just stay home? And this will order everything on Amazon and be a prisoner in your home with all the technology you have in your home, which again is listening to you, monitoring you 24/7. So living life as a prisoner. So it's working, right? This person says that. Here's another person. This is why I don't do cruises. Not sure why anyone else still does, right? Because of viruses. Because again, as I'll show you, the propaganda in the films, the predictive programming of viruses on planes, viruses on movies, keeping you still, keeping you controlled and quarantined in your prison home, right? There's always a nasty virus on those cruise ships, or someone is always falling overboard, says another person. And then you get this one, the best of the best. Nope, keep them on that ship. They should not be able to dock anywhere. Somebody who is so narcissistic that if there was really a virus out there, this person is so vain that they really don't care if the people on the cruise ship die, because they don't want to get sick themselves. So they tell them to stay on that ship and don't ever get off that ship, right? So that's the mindset of our society today. That's how unhinged these people are. And the cruise ship with the hantavirus actually did finally dock. It headed to Canary Islands, which is fitting because this story is for the birds. And we had 3 people evacuated. And then as you start to read the headlines, you start to see where we're going, right? 23 hantavirus cruise passengers returned home to all corners, including to the U.S., right? So all the passengers on the ship, they've been placed in every single continent, every single place they could possibly. They're surrounding us all over the earth, not just in America, in every country, in Europe, in Asia. They're everywhere, all corners of the earth. And already one person has gotten sick. And maybe the best part of all is, as you heard at the end of that clip, I put it in there deliberately for you at the beginning. If you didn't listen and you skipped through it, they're talking about quarantining 147 people. Supposedly are quarantined, 3 people dead, probably Jane Doe, John Doe, and George Glass. And the quarantine period is a 2-month quarantine, right? So see how they just keep moving these lines, right? Moving the goalposts, as they say, right? The COVID quarantine tested out with 14 days. Some people were doing it to themselves multiple times, right? We saw in the news anchors doing newscasts from their home because they were quarantining. All the propaganda out there was absolutely hilarious for people who were awake, but obviously traumatizing for people who were asleep because it made them fearful to actually leave their home. And we still see these psychopaths, and that's what they are. They're psychotic. Their behavior is psychotic. People who are out there wearing masks still in 2026 because they haven't woken up yet, because they're in such a trance that they're still wearing masks, still thinking that masks help, still thinking there's a virus going on out there. Meanwhile, they're holding their phones up to their head and continuing to expose themselves to the real disease out there, which are these EMF frequencies that are getting directed at our brains on a day in, day out basis. So
what I want to do is fast forward to that clip from the X-Files. Okay. Well, you can watch the rest of this video as well. He goes in and covers, he goes deeper into, the Masonic and, Illuminati, symbolism, and, he links all these different things together. He's big into the celebrities and particular things. So you can watch the rest of that, so he calls out, a lot of the things, 33-day cruise. I think the last hantavirus was 33 years ago. I think it was 93. Okay, in America, so always dealing with that Masonic number of 33. But let's go here to the what you call the revelation of the method. Okay, when they show you plainly, okay, the different agendas they got. So let's play this. And this was from the X-Files, right? And it says, "Fight the future." You see, X-Files, fight the future. You see.
There's a scene where they're talking about the hantavirus and it being a bioweapon, huh? How's this for predictive programming?
They want to discredit you for what?
Because I'm a dangerous man, because I know too much about the truth.
Now that end of the world apocalyptic garbage, you right?
You know my work? I was right about Dallas, wasn't I?
How were you right?
Are you familiar with the hantavirus, Agent Mulder?
Yeah, it was a deadly virus spread by field mice in the southwestern United States several years ago.
According to the newspaper, FEMA was called out to manage an outbreak of the hantavirus. Are you familiar with what the Federal Emergency Management Agency's real power is? FEMA allows the White House to suspend constitutional government upon declaration of a national emergency. Think about that. What is an agency with such broad sweeping power doing managing a small viral outbreak in suburban Texas?
You're saying it wasn't such a small outbreak?
No. I'm saying it wasn't the hantavirus.
Well, what was it? What was it?
When we were young men in the military, your father and I were recruited for a project. They told us it was biological warfare, a virus.
What killed those men?
What killed them, I won't even write about. We have no conscience to be unleashed in the future.
A plague?
The plague to end all plagues, Agent Mulder. A silent weapon for a quiet war. The systematic release of an indiscriminate organism for which the men who will bring it on still have no cure. They've been working on this for 50 years. While the rest of the world have been fighting crooks and commies, these men have been secretly negotiating a planned Armageddon.
Negotiating with whom?
I think you know. The timetable has been set. It'll happen on a holiday when people are away from their homes. The president will declare a state of emergency, at which time all government, all federal agencies will come under the power of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, the secret government.
They call me paranoid.
Go back to Dallas, Agent Mulder, and dig. Or we're going to find out along with the rest of the country when it's too late.
And from there, of course, I mean, it couldn't be.
There you go, man. You know, so these silent weapons, you know, for quiet wars, okay, which we know a lot of people are still walking around with the juice from 2020, okay, and they're still, you know, hey, we haven't seen what the devil is going to do with that. You know, what he put in people from then, you know, what's been spreading around, all right, and people from then, those silent wars, man, you know, so this devil, you know, he has to come on, he has to go all out, man, okay, the Most High is making this devil put all his cards on the table, you see, because scriptures say what he should come, matter of fact, if a brother can get that, all right, he should have a you know, short wrath, I mean, a short time, he should come down with great wrath. I'm gonna queue up another video. Okay. We got one more. Now this is segue into now, as you have this hantavirus, and guess what? The war is starting to rev back up. You know, the war is starting to get more kinetic. Okay. Iran is getting more offensive. Okay. So at the same time you have the hantavirus, you got, you know, the Iran war. Okay. They're still ongoing. You see? And I say Iran is starting to get offensive again, which is going to lead, you know, to you know, a hot war. You know, another hot war, another round, a continuation of, you know, those first 40 days we seen, you know, from January 28th until April the 9th, you know. So let's read. This is the brother Yashima tribe of Judah, Proverbs 14 and 15 said, the simple believe every word, but the prudent man look well to his going. You know, and there's a lot of simple people, you know, and it's going to be confused with all these different narratives, okay? Because you got the, you know, the virus, okay, happening. You know, you got this, you know, they're making this a, you know, they're running with the narrative, all right? Because they're getting ready, it's seeming like they're getting ready to say, you know, that they lost containment, okay? So you got this going on. You got the war going on. You got the food shortages, the gas shortages, the energy crisis. Okay. So we're going to see people, you know, that think they know, realize, because it's going to be overwhelming. You know, brother can post that too. Ezekiel 12 and 22 and 23, Bible shot. Okay. Ezekiel 12 verses 22, 23, in fact, and 24. You know, Ezekiel 12 verses 22 through 24. Okay, so there's a lot of simple people that don't understand how the devil gets down. You know, like them simple people on the comment board. Okay, because everything that the devil is pushing is a major psyops and enchantment. You know, and he operates in confusion, man. You know, so we're finna see, you know, the Lord really put the spirit on the devil to throw everything that he got, man. It said, but the prudent man, okay, which to be truly prudent, you have to have the spirit of Yahweh Shem Shai. You know, there's a higher power, you know, that has us on point in the spirit, you know, that's giving us understanding of these things, the wisdom and knowledge, okay, being our understanding. And another one that a brother can put as well, Proverbs 22 and 3, Bible shot. Okay, so let's go here. This is another one by the brother Yashima tribe of Judah, Revelation 12 and 12. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath. Okay, and why is he going to come with great wrath? because he knows he have but a short time. See, this devil, he's beyond doing trial runs. He got to come on with it now. He got to come on with his move, man. Okay? So this devil, he has things up his sleeves, man, that's going to bring about a lot of death, man. Because remember, he has a depopulation agenda on the books, man. He wants to depopulate, especially here in America, a lot of these poor countries. He wants to, what they call developing economies, which are countries that he, has impoverished, man, through his shady economics, when you get into it. Okay? So let's play this because, even with the war, it's starting to, get back hot. Okay, and all these things are happening at the same time. And then they're saying that the earth hasn't even felt the effects, of this energy shortage. They say they haven't even really felt the shock of the energy crisis yet, man. So let's play this.
Panicking at 1 a.m. in the morning, making social media post after post. Here's what went down. The United Arab Emirates shut down the Dubai airport and all its other major airports and said that Iran was launching ballistic missiles and drone strikes all over the UAE. Donald Trump saying, well, we're still just pretend that none of this is going on. Here's the message from the United Emirates Ministry of Defense. Here's what they posted at around 1 a.m. The UAE's air defenses are currently dealing with missile and drone attacks originating from Iran, and the Ministry of Defense confirms that the sounds heard in various parts of the country are the results of UAE air defense systems intercepting ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones. UAE air defense systems are actively engaging with missiles and UAV threats. Ministry of Defense asserts that the sounds heard across the country are the results of these ongoing operations. Okay, so that's what UAE is saying. And then they shut down, at least temporarily, the Dubai airport. And right before the United Arab Emirates Ministry of Defense posted these warnings that their air defense systems were activated, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps spokesperson Abraham Zolfghari, you've seen this guy before speak, he posted the following: short and clear, if we have to, we will annex Abu Dhabi to Iran's territory. Then he posted the coordinates for Dubai airport. The opportunity is limited with the coordinates for Dubai airport, where if you were going with missile, these are the coordinates that you would set. And then he writes, people of the Emirates, stay away from oil and military centers, or better yet, leave the United Arab Emirates. Leave the UAE now, he posts. Now this followed CENTCOM admitting that the United States launched strikes against Iran right around the Karg Island. CENTCOM and Donald Trump said these were limited strikes. And then they said, please, let's just continue our ceasefire. We don't want to escalate things. The Trump version and the CENTCOM version of events is they were sending 3 naval destroyers through the Strait of Hormuz. When Iran started firing on these naval destroyers, the naval destroyers were untouched by Iran's fast boats. And then the United States Navy and Air Force quickly struck these targets in Qasem Island, or the Qasem port, rather, right around Karg Island. And the Trump regime says very successful operation. Iran says, we saw these 3 naval destroyers. The fast boats of Iran went to neutralize them, started shooting at the naval destroyers. The destroyers left. They did fire on Qasem and other areas near Karg Island, and no major damage was done. And the U.S. fled after Iran showed that it still controlled the Strait of Hormuz. And then in response, at least the UAE is saying, then Iran's retaliating against UAE very, late last night or early in the morning, depending on what time, you're watching this.
So yeah, what you had was you know, the American Navy sent, you know, Navy destroyer vessels, you know, close to the Strait. All right, Iran fired on those vessels, you know, and those vessels, you know, began to retreat. They fired on Cog Island. All right, and uh uh after they fired on Cog Island, all right, Iran, you know, struck the UAE, you know. So you're having, shooting. All right, you're having shootouts, you know, naval shootouts between Iran and America. Okay, now right now they're minor, you know, they're limited, they're not causing a lot of damage. Okay, but the fact that, you know, they're starting back to doing strikes on each other. Now these things could die down, okay, because America, what they're doing, they're posturing themselves for another round. You know, it's going to take some time for them to get replenished with certain munitions, you know, with certain interceptors. All right, they're constantly moving more men, you know, into that region, you know. So America in these small hats, you know, they need time. All right. So we're seeing them, you know, dance around each other a little bit, you know, get into little skirmishes. All right. But ultimately, America and these small hats are, setting themselves up to go at it again, you know, because they both took a lot of damage militarily. You see, the Americans, they killed a lot of the American military killed a lot of civilians, all right, in Iran. Okay, but Iran did a lot of damage to America's ability, okay, to wage war in that region, you know. So those things have to be built back up, you know, and that war gonna continue, man. You know, so you still have, you know, this conflict, okay, that's not over. Okay, it's just a pause, okay, from the heavy fighting until America and these small hats, all right, reposition themselves to go at it again. Okay, and all this is happening at the same time that you have, you know, the potential of a global outbreak, man. Okay, so let's go here. I got this. We can end it here. Let's go here to the book of Ezekiel 12. You know, so there's a little back and forth. All right, nothing major, you know, but just keeping up and with that timeline, you know, because you have all these things going on at once. So this Ezekiel 12:21 says, "And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, what is that proverb that ye have in the land of Israel, saying, the days are prolonged, and every vision faileth." Okay, and every vision faileth, man. You know, because people live. Because see, if you're not living with the urgency to repent and come back to Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, all right, there's you saying that the vision ain't happening. Well, you're okay reasoning, okay, your lack of urgency towards repentance, okay, you're moving like the vision faileth, man, as if these prophecies ain't happening, man. You know, and these devils, you know, dealing with this hunter virus, like they said, they put it right there in that episode of the X-Files, man. Okay, he said hunter virus, man. You know, so these devils, they try to you know, what they call predictive programming. Okay, they try to prophesy on the left hand, try to imitate the right hand. Okay, but all in all, okay, is within the overall vision of the Lord. You know, because a lot of these things, a lot of things that these devils do, you know, there's a lot of things that fail. You know, but the thing that the Lord wants to come to pass, He allows them to accomplish, man. You know, and because they're able to pull off, you know, particular things, they think that they are in full control, okay, of the narrative, man. You know, or the way this thing going, man. But that's not the case. Okay, the Heavenly Father, all right, is in full control, man. And it's gonna be more and more evident, you know, for those that know, all right, the prophecy that are tapped in, that are in tune with prophecy, man. We're gonna see this our power that's in control. Okay, verse 23, tell them, therefore, thus said the Lord power, I will make this proverb to cease, and they shall no more use it as a proverb in Israel, but say unto them, the days are at hand, and the effect of every vision. You see, the days are at hand, and the effect of every vision, man. Okay, so we're living in the time of the effect of every vision. Everything our forefathers, seen and had scribed down. The Lord gave them visions and dreams. Okay, angels came to them with interpretations, breaking particular things down. Well, now, all right, we're living in a time where the things that haven't happened is getting ready to play out. And it's all going to play out at the same time, man. Because the Lord has, all right, his end game, his agenda that's going to be achieved, man. So yeah, we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there. Lord will. All right, you brothers. Okay, and if you sisters edified once again, I want to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Rakakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers. And peace and blessings, salutations to the whole elect. Shalom.